Hi, I'm Shara Ogilvie, author and therapist, working on launching my career from just being a therapist to actually being an author, published, I hope. That's my hope. And you're here for the journey. So welcome to my time capsule about my writing journey. Today, what I want to focus on is sharing a little bit about structure. In the last episode, I talked about using Notebook LM to help me learn about thriller structure. Well, today I want to talk about what I'm learning from a book called Blueprint for a Memoir. I can't remember the name of the author, but she's easy to look up. She's written lots of writing books. Blueprint for a Memoir. And she has a little exercise in here that I'm working on, and I'll share a little bit about the exercise and why it's meaningful to me. Now, before I get started too far into the weeds here, I do want to say that you probably have heard and will continue to hear a lot of work from me on trying to wrap my head around structure. Because back in 2018, I wrote a book called Living with Animals. It's on Audible only. I'll put a link in case you're interested. It's like 3 hours. It's the tiniest little book. But I wrote it in one weekend. It kind of came out quick and easy because it was just a very narrow scope. Just some memories about my life with my children and their pets. And I didn't really have a point to it. It was just to capture these stories. And it didn't really sell well. It didn't go anywhere. I didn't market it. I didn't have a platform. I didn't hire a book cover creator, nothing. I just stuck it out there for fun. And I learned that not only did nothing happen, but I didn't even know why I was writing it, right? It wasn't like structured in a way that someone opens it up and they know what they're going to get. And then by the end of the story, they're so satisfied because they got exactly what you promised. And so I'm trying not to make that mistake again as I write my trauma stories, this new memoir about my life of recovering from trauma, finding meaning and peace. I want to make it compelling because the trauma that I want to talk about is so, it's intense. There's a lot of it. There's many years of it and it's varied. But if I tell it poorly, first of all, it won't be interesting. And second of all, people won't stick around to learn the lessons that I really want to share. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure out how do I structure this book. So today I'm going to share what I'm learning from this book called Blueprint of a Memoir. What I am learning is that as part of preparing yourself to write your memoir, you should write an impact outline. And what an impact outline is a list of scenes, key scenes that you intend to tell in your book, only like, I think she says 13 to 22. So key scenes, and that's not very many. If you're talking about like a 250-page book, like between 13 and 22 key scenes are a small handful. But she wants you to just choose that small handful of scenes and then write it in this particular scripted way, which I'll tell you. So you take each scene, you put them in the order you're going to tell it, which is usually chronological. And then for each one, you ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what is the scene? What happens? Number 2, how did it affect yourself as the writer, as the child, as a human living it? And number 3, how do you anticipate that will affect the reader? What are they going to get out of it? What's in it for them? And then between each of these little scene sections, you have to justify what leads from one scene to the next scene. So I'm going to give you an example because I think this is so helpful. And then I'll tell you one of the reasons I think it is critical, imperative for me to get this right. We'll do that in just a second. So, okay. And here's an example. So opening scene, a scene I'm thinking about using, I don't know for sure if I will, is me sitting in a hospital, unable to sleep. Okay, how did that affect me? So I'm supposed to write how this affects me. So the scene and then how it affected me as the human. I say, I'm determined to do whatever it takes to get better, no matter the cost. So that's what I'm trying to portray. That is how I'm transforming. That's like my personal experience. Then how I can assume it's going to impact the reader is that they're going to identify when they've hit rock bottom with something in life and that they want to get over it no matter what the cost. So I want my reader to be thinking about their own life and when they have bumped up against something that they are just over, they're willing to make whatever sacrifice, they're willing to do whatever it takes to get out of that. That's what I hope they get out of that. Then you're supposed to think about how that leads to your next scene. So I'm going to give you an example from that too. So my next scene or major like scene that I want to share is my mom's childhood, a scene from my mom's childhood, her living in poverty and neglect. So the scene I want to share is my mom living in poverty and neglect. The impact on me would be that my story is a mystery even to me, but my mother's history can help make sense of my own life. The impact that I would like to see it take on the reader is maybe curiosity about how their own parents have struggled, what they've been through, and how that has affected their parents and then trickled down into affecting their lives. So like a mind-opening curiosity about their own ancestors or parents or family members and how it's impacting them that then impacts the reader. So then the link between these two, me sitting there in the hospital and then flashing back to my mother's childhood, I have to come up with a link between each scene, right? So here's just an example. It would be because of this, then this. That's how the writer says we're supposed to think of the link. Because of this, then this. So how does it link me being in the hospital with like my mother's upbringing? So the link would be that one thing led to the other, that we don't see the impact of what happened many, many years ago, but things can eventually lead to this other place. So I'm inferring that what happened in the hospital started many, many years ago with people I hadn't even met yet, in a time before I was born. And that's how that is connected. So anyway, if you are enjoying this journey of writing and writing along with me, please subscribe. I would love to hear from you. I would love to see you and know who you are. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're at. If you're just curious, if this is just fun for you, or if you're also a writer, but please let me know who you are so I can say hi and be aware of you. And I hope that as you're outlining that this is helpful, if that's where you're at, to think about what is the impact on you and the impact on the reader. And there's one other thing I was going to tell you about this, of why I think this is so important. One of my biggest goals in writing is to not tell my story from a woe is me victim mentality. I want to tell it from a place of compassion and empowerment, that I'm able to move forward with my life and find joy. And I wish the best to everyone who's crossed my path, even if there's no longer in my life, or if they're in my life in a different way than they were before, or whatever. I want to write it from a place of compassion. And that's why it's so important for me to be aware of what is my impact on the reader. And so this exercise is awesome, because if I'm thinking, what is the reader going to get out of this? Then I can really self-check and make sure I'm not playing the victim, or I'm not being petty or immature. I can remember I have real people that need me to tell my story from a place of compassion, and that will help hold me accountable. So I hope that's the direction this goes. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.